Hello everyone and welcome to Water World. This is another monthly shrimp room video update. In this month's update I will show you my new shrimp, my new plants, new mosses acquired, a new shrimp tank, a new planted tank with a common and rare plant, and how things are progressing overall in here with my existing shrimp colonies. Let's go! Let's start with the rack. As you can see, the rack lights are finally up and running. If you want to check their unboxing and review, a link will pop up in your screens right now. The installation was simple. All I used was a fishing line, a super glue, and that was it, guys. The fishing line can hold really big fish trying to escape it, so these lights will not cause a problem as they're very light. The heat generated from these lights is not enough to cause them to melt or stretch. So all I did was to install 2 fishing lines per shelf and insert each light respectively. I secured each knot with the super glue as well. Fixing the fishing lines on the rack took me about a minute for each, and then I just had to let the glue cure for about half an hour. It was an easy fix, and if it's gonna hold in the long run, well, that is great. If not, I have no regrets, as in essence I spent no money, no time, and to be honest, it was effortless. Having the lights in place allowed me to bring on the rack a few plants that I had here and there in the house. These plants over here are 3 variations of the coleus plant. I want to propagate them in order to utilize them in future projects. As you can see, they do grow in water, so having them in an aquarium with the roots bare is something that I want to try. One thing that I have to test though is if there are gonna be any issues with my shrimp. However, I'm pretty sure that they should be fine. Now, as you can see, this one over here is growing flowers, and the other one over here is about to do the same. However, I am going to cut these flowers right now, as I do not want them to waste their energy in producing those flowers. Instead, I do want them to grow more leaves and grow. Now, planted in this tank over here, it's actually a jar, not a tank. I do have hydrocolyte tripartite species Japan. I also have another backup portion in one of my planted tanks. And the other plant, free floating over here, can be found actually in gardens. A family friend brought it over, so I'm not aware of its specifics. However, I used to have it outside at the garden, and it was attacked by spider mites. And in order to save it, I had to completely submerge it underwater for a couple of days. And as you can see, it's now surviving in here. As you can see, it's also growing in water, and it is doing great. So my plan is to utilize this one in a future project involving shrimp tanks. Now, both of them, the hydrocolyte and this floating plant, free floating plant actually, it's not a floating plant, I'm gonna rehouse them and put them in actual tanks and see how they will go. Over here in this tank, I have temporarily placed some java fern cuttings, as I do propagate them and sell them for profit. In another video I will show you how to keep cuttings which you would like to sell without having to set them up on rocks or driftwood, and for this reason waste space in your tanks. These plants over there are labeled as terrarium plants, and I'm aiming to rehouse them in a terrarium in order to propagate them. I will then use some of them, some of the new plants, to test which ones can survive while having their roots in water, and use them in future projects accordingly. Any excess will be sold to fund other projects. Now, we're gonna move on and check the floating plants over here. So over here, here, and here, the floating plants are Salvinia minima. I ordered a few aquatic plants about 6 months ago, and 2 or 3 of these came with the order 2, either as a gift or by mistake, I'm not sure. Regardless, I kept them, and I am propagating them in order to place them inside my tanks, and they're gonna help me to keep the nitrate levels down. Over here, I have three bonsai trees. They were given to me by a friend as they all had a spider mite infestation. And in the case of these two, this one and this one, their condition was so bad that I had to completely remove them from their pots and submerge them in a container with a solution of water and bleach with the roots and all. This one survived and is recovering. However, I'm not so sure about this one over here. I got it with literally just 2 leaves, so for now I'm not sure of what is happening. Perhaps it hasn't grown any leaves, as you can see, and I'm not sure if it's like a seasonal thing, but yeah, we will see. This one actually survived too, and for now I just left it to do its thing. The plan is to use them in paludariums down the track. Now, over here, I started a very interesting collection of mosses. I do have Java moss. You have seen it in my big breeding tank with the Caridina shrimp. I already had peacock moss, however, I have some here. I have heaps of Christmas moss. You've seen Christmas moss in my old 90-liter tank. Now, I got more mosses. Some of them are common, some of them are uncommon, and some of them are rare. I got the willow moss, these 2 containers over here. I got flame moss, this one over here. I got 2 different variations of the Fissidens moss. I got the Fissidens species nobilis or nobilis, which came actually with this fern over here. It's the Crepidomanes auriculatum fern. Now, they were both packaged together as they came from the same seller. It is safe to assume that the seller kept them in the same tank. The problem with them is that they're both infected with blackbeard algae, guys. For this reason, I isolated them and started treatment with Excel as it has algaecide properties. I will keep you posted on their progress. However, if you have any suggestions on how to get rid of these algae quicker, please do leave a comment in the comment section below. I also got this type of Fissidens moss. However, its species is unknown. I do mean that I'm not aware of its species. The structure is smaller than the nobilis, so if you think that you know which species it is, you know what to do. Leave a comment. Now I'm very excited because my moss collection has 2 rare gems. The Cameroon moss, which is this one over here. It's this one over here, guys. And also the Pilo Moss, which is this one over here. I'm looking forward to growing all of them. Anyway, I will make dedicated videos for each one of them in the future, so stay tuned if you're interested in learning more about them. Now, let's check the middle shelf over here on this rack. Over here, as you can see, I have this unique jar. It is actually a big jar sitting on a big piece of driftwood, making it very, very unique. In here, I'm gonna house a shrimp and some of the plants that you saw on the bottom shelf. Now, in these containers over here and the tank at the back, I placed all the duckweed, which I removed from the big Caridina breeding tank. All these duckweed guys came to be in just 1 month, and I still have some in there. I will break it down to multiple portions, out of which some will be sold and the rest will become shrimp food. By the way, recipes coming up, so stay tuned. Moving on, this tank now houses some uncommon and rare plants. It is meant to be a propagation tank just for such plants. Some plants might not necessarily be uncommon or rare, but for some reason I might deem them special, as from time to time they're hard to come by in the stores, so I will place them in here in the beginning until I manage to propagate them successfully and have a stable supply. I am thinking of placing the Pilo and Cameroon mosses in here actually. Anyway, we'll see. What do we have in there? You can actually see the full video with the setup of this tank by clicking the card, which is gonna pop up in your screens right now. In brief, in here I have a flamingo crypt over there. As expected, 2/3 of the leaves melted away. I do have 2 blood vomit plants over here. I do have 2 crimson king plants. I do have a Magadascar Lace. However, as most of its leaves were damaged, I didn't want the plant to try and repair the damaged leaves, so I chopped them off and just left one, the healthiest one. And for sure it's gonna bounce back. As this plant is actually a bulb plant, I didn't bury the bulb deep into the substrate. I also increased the water flow, as these plants like fast flowing waters. And initially I had the temperature up to 25 degrees Celsius, but I read that these guys actually prefer lower temperatures, so I lowered it to 21 degrees Celsius. I believe that this should keep all the plants in here happy. Now, the plant over there in the middle is one that I had never seen before, and this is the reason as to why I got it. Now, I was not aware, like I said, of its ID. However, a good friend of the channel told me that this plant seems to be the Didiplis Diandra. The Didiplis Diandra is actually looking horrible at the moment. However, the top bit is still looking healthy, so I am optimistic. I believe that it is still in shock from the move, and it will take some time for it to acclimatize. Okay, that was the update with this tank, and I think that now it's time to move to the top shelf of the rack and check on the Neocaridina shrimp. Let's go. Okay, and we're ready to check on the Neocaridina tanks. Let's start with the Green Jades first. The Jade village here is growing, lots and lots of baby Green Jade shrimp and billions of cyclops. Perhaps the major factor for breeding trillions of shrimp is to keep them in a tank full of cyclops. The cyclops population will eventually decline. They pose absolutely no threat to the healthy baby shrimplets, as I have observed, so there is nothing to worry about. I haven't started the culling process just yet, but I will probably do so by the end of July. At the moment, I'm just letting them to populate the tank, and later on, I'm just gonna keep the very best of them in here. The rest will become colonists and explorers in other water worlds, as I'm gonna work with them in other projects. In here, I added 3 male Green Jades, purchased about 10 days ago, along with a mix of other cherries. They had nice solid green color, and so I went for them. Other than that, nothing major is happening here. So, moving on to the next tank. This tank in last month's video update was empty, however, yet cycled. Since then, I got 1 male yellow cherry shrimp and 1 buried female yellow cherry shrimp. After 2 or 3 days, guess what happened? I had baby shrimplets, and now the female is buried again. You're actually witnessing the birth of a new colony. The Bucephalandra plants in this tank are actually doing great, and at some point I will have to take some cuttings out in order to propagate them. The next tank over here is the tank where I keep my blue dreams. The blue dreams in here have grown, however, it is a bit hard for me to locate them as the substrate is black. Perhaps I will have to redo this tank in the future. I have not seen a buried female yet. I added a few new blue dream shrimp in here to bump up the number of the existing ones. As you can see, I have 2 breeding tanks in here at the moment. This tank, besides the blue dreams, is now housing some Bloody Marys and a few black roses. Both these type of shrimp will have their very own tanks in the future. However, for now, they're gonna stay in these breeding boxes. The Bloody Marys are beautiful. However, one of them is a bit off in terms of color. However, I believe that it is a female, so I am gonna need her to grow the colony. That was the rack update, and now let's go and check what is happening in the big breeding tank housing the Caridinas. Okay guys, so let's start with the first partition over here. In this partition over here, I'm keeping the shrimp that I have for sale. It is a partition where all the excess shrimp go, and if you guys remember last month, I only had the crystal red shrimp in here. However, since then, almost all of them were sold, and the ones that you're currently seeing in terms of crystal reds are babies to juvies.
well, most of them, and they were moved in here last week. Last week I also moved in here some goldens, which are up for sale as well now that their main colony is expanding. I am not a big fan of keeping hundreds of shrimp in a tank just to prove that I'm breeding lots successfully. I am continuously selling the excess once a colony starts taking off, even before moving them into this partition. This helps me to get more shrimp, new gear, and expand into the hobby. So in this partition, for now, we are keeping crystal reds and goldens. Moving on with the next partition over here. In this partition, I have the A team of my crystal reds. There are many babies in the moss, and only the very best males in terms of grading end up in this partition. These guys are breeding continuously, and that makes me super happy. Moving to the next partition over here, where I keep the King Kong and Crystal Red mixed colony. Well, I'm seeing more and more King Kongs and Pandas guys here, and across the entire tank, as the baby shrimp can go through the mesh. As you can see, there is mesh over here, and from the other side over here, and the babies can actually go through the mesh. Regardless, I always catch them and put them in the right section every now and then before they become mature and breed with females in the wrong partition. Things are progressing slowly in here, as these guys are Taiwan bees in essence, and they do breed slower than the crystals. So I'm just being patient. The blue balls in the next partition over here are not doing so well. All the blue balls are males, and for sure I will have to bump up their numbers by purchasing some more in hopes of getting females too. Even though I added some snow white and golden females in here, I do not feel very confident with this colony. Anyway, we will see how things go once the new shrimp are in. Now, the last partition over here is housing goldens and a few snow whites. Down the trunk, I'm planning to separate the two into two colonies. And yeah, I'm just gonna breed snow whites and goldens. Now, for the moment, they're steadily increasing their numbers, and like I said earlier, some were moved to the first partition in order to be sold. The shrimp in here are doing well, and I'm expecting to see more baby shrimp in the coming month. So overall, extremely happy, guys.
That was it, guys, for this month. As always, I hope you got inspiration or at least a few ideas. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you think that overall it rocks and you want to stay tuned for more, please subscribe to my channel, and I will catch you on the next one.